still don't have a Sega CD? Huh? What are you waiting for, Nintendo to make one? You have seen the games, right? Wrong answer, man. Show 'em!
Starting in the early 90s, various companies were going through a quantity over quality phase. Optical media opened the door for marketable possibilities, and while the technology was still new and unprepared, they went with it anyway, and jumped the gun, being overly confident in the graphical capabilities. So what if we are a generation away from impressively utilizing CD quality? Look at the full motion video. It's less like a game and more like a movie. Don't get me wrong, FMV is good and useful, but if we want to see a movie, then we'll watch a movie. We buy video game consoles to play video games. You think the Notorious Big would have put the Panasonic 3DO in his lyrics? No, it was Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Speaking of Sega, they got into the disc hype too, and released an add-on for the Genesis. Enter the Sega CD, or Mega CD outside of North America. There are two kinds of Sega CD games. A slew of cutscenes, in absurdly poor quality I might add, where all the gameplay is through point-and-click mechanics, or QuickTime events.
The entire game is cutscenes. It's an FMV, unbroken, from beginning to end. And it's very simple. Arrows and buttons appear on the screen, and you have to push them before they disappear, or you take a hit. If your life bar runs out, it's game over. That's it.
And two, the games that use the CD quality to look and sound more polished. Soul Feast, The Terminator, Afterburner 3. Now that's what I'm talking about. They look and play like games with higher quality recorded voices, snappy visuals, and superb music to boot. The Adventures of Batman and Robin features animation that looks like it was straight from the show. And Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill reprising their roles as Batman and the Joker, that's always a plus.
Someone's been making me jump through hoops all night. Who's calling the shots?
The guy's been a thorn in your side for some time.
Even though the Sega CD gets a bad rap, it was revolutionary as a stepping stone for how video games turned out today. And there are plenty of games worth checking out. Flashback and Snatcher are considered two of the best games ever made. Let's get an Ultimate Sega CD collection. I'm down. Imagine if a Sonic game took advantage of the Sega CD's hardware in the best way. Well, Sonic Team had the same idea. At first, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was meant to be ported to the Sega CD as an improved version of it, like Echo the Dolphin. But since sales of Sonic 2 in Japan weren't as high as expected, Sega decided to develop a brand new game for the add-on. God bless you picky Japanese kids who weren't that astounded by Sonic 2 for whatever reason. While programmers Yuji Naka and Hirokazu Yasuhara were working on Sonic 2 in the United States, character designer Naoto Oshima led the development team in Japan as director of the next installment. Kazuyuki Hoshino was hired as character designer. This marks the first main series title where Naka and Yasuhara were not involved. 1993 was the first big year for Sonic. This is when the franchise exploded. 2 animated series, 4 spin-off games, 2 of which based on the shows, and the beginning of the longest comic book series based on a video game, which unfortunately will stop printing this year. Even with all this, you still need one solid game to continue the main series. Oh, and they picked up on that.
Mega CD.
究極兵器メタルソニック最速にして最強のライバル出現がソニックを熱く過激にする過去へ未来へ超音速アクションは時空をも超えた
Sonic the Hedgehog CD from Mega CD.
That fall, we've come to not only my favorite of the classic era, but one of my favorite Sonic games, period. Sonic the Hedgehog CD. The game that goes in depth even further about what the franchise is about, and what makes Sonic such a major character. It's arguably the best Sonic game of all time, and that's saying something. Let's dive in and see why. Sometime after Sonic and Tails liberated West Side Island from Dr. Eggman's control, The dwarf star Little Planet makes its annual visit over Neverlake, 1 month per year. Eggman has waited for Little Planet to return since he heard of its 7 treasures, the Time Stones. In the Japanese manual, there is one documented record of the Time Stones in use. The Time Stones once reverted Neverlake from an ugly, polluted desert into a beautiful and thriving meadow. As soon as it reaches Neverlake, Eggman sends his robots to chain the star to the earth, basically imprisoning it, as he builds his headquarters there, and unleashed his forces to scavenge for the Time Stones. With all 7, Eggman has abused time travel, and set robot generators in the past versions of all 7 stages. All hope seems lost. But as luck would have it, Sonic makes his way to Little Planet. He's unaware of Eggman's plans. He just wants to see Little Planet since it won't be there for long. And he gets there in this breathtaking opening. It's the best opening cutscene of any Sonic game in my opinion. The colors, the action, the scale. Now I'm definitely excited to play this. The animation by Toei is nothing short of amazing. And yes, this is done by Toei, the same company behind Dragon Ball. That makes 2 things Sonic and Dragon Ball have in common. The music makes it even sweeter. The game has 2 separate soundtracks, Japanese and North American. The Japanese opening theme is Toot-Toot Sonic Warrior, or Sonic, You Can Do Anything, composed by Masafumi Ogata and performed by Keigo Utoku and the late Casey Rankin, an upbeat, positive song that captures Sonic's heroic personality. It's covered a lot in this game for the invincibility theme, the speed up theme, and a more disturbing remix was made for the Game Over theme. The North American theme is Sonic Boom, composed by Spencer Nilsson and performed by the band Pastiche, an optimistic and rockin' track that never gets old. If Toot-Toot Sonic Warrior gets the giddy and lighthearted side of Sonic, then Sonic Boom gets the deeper, more serious side of him. Both songs are a pleasure to hear, and they give you the impression that you're in for an unforgettable journey. Upon seeing what Eggman's done, Sonic looks to the invaded Little Planet with fire in his eyes. He's not a benign kid who's happy and cheerful all the time. He has conviction. He's seen what Eggman has done in the previous installments, and he won't let another world suffer the same way. Without a second thought, Sonic runs along the chain to reach Little Planet, and thus, the adventure begins. The opening stage is Palm Tree Panic, a charming grassland that once again resembles Green Hill Zone like Emerald Hill Zone did for the most part, but it has its own qualities that make it stand out. The walls have a more triangular pattern instead of a checkerboard layout. Thick palm trees are scattered throughout the area, and there are a plethora of mountains with waterfalls in the background. There's also this little nugget where Sonic goes through a tube and crashes through the bottom, leaving a silhouette of himself Wile E. Coyote style. I love it when games show their sense of humor in moments like these. The stages in CD omit zone in the names. Zone is used in place of act, however. There are 3 zones total, like in the original. In fact, this game has a lot of similarities to the original in a few parts that makes it seem like a tribute to Sonic 1, while still being its own thing. Every stage is an alliteration. Palm Tree Panic, Quartz Quadrant. This will return in Sonic 3D Blast. Oh, and we were reminded of what game we're playing. Thanks, I guess. The gold plates at the end omit Sonic giving the V sign from the last 2 games to feature Eggman giving a thumbs down, while Sonic gives a thumbs up. They might as well be split on rating a movie. Sonic has just about the same abilities as last time, save for one new move, the Super Peel Out. The sister ability to the returning Spin Dash from Sonic 2 has Sonic charging up speed with his legs moving like a Mobius strip, and going even faster than the Spin Dash allows, although the Spin Dash has been toned down since last time. When you want to pick up more speed, go with the Super Peel Out. There is a drawback though. While you're moving faster, you're also more vulnerable for badniks to hit you. Playing opposite to the Spin Dash that has you traveling slower, but protects you from enemies, so the two abilities are balanced. And I should not ignore this bit where if you do nothing for 3 minutes straight, Sonic will say, and commit suicide. Damn. Anyway, it is cool to hear Sonic talk for the first time in a console main series game. Yes, classic Sonic talked. I'm still not buying how Sonic Generations had him portrayed as this mute, plushy little guy. It looks like Sonic Forces is gonna keep that up. Hey. For those of you who are wondering, Sonic was voiced in this game by Keiko Otoku, making her the only female voice of the Blue Blur. And last but not least, the music. It matches the colorful and bright tone of the stage, upbeat and cheerful. A notable feature is when we hear kids shouting with joy, making this stage seem livelier. This game makes full use of the Sega CD in the right way. In Sonic Generations, I always set the song for classic Green Hill. It's my favorite of the Green Hill lookalikes, both the stage and the song. The Japanese song specifically. While the North American version has a lot of good tunes, the Japanese one is undoubtedly better, and we'll mainly hear from that soundtrack concerning the stages. In the Japanese soundtrack, each stage has one song and 3 remixes of it. Why the remixes? That's because of this game's certain feature. You may have noticed signs that say past or future. These are time warp plates. By passing through a time warp plate and running at a high enough speed, this happens. Sonic can travel through time, and the future looks horrifying. The colors are bleak. All wildlife is dead. There are badniks everywhere. The water looks irreversibly polluted. And the most disturbing aspect is the music. Remember the kids from the present version? This is how they sound now. This implies that Eggman's reign of Little Planet has contaminated all water into toxic waste, inadvertently mutating the kids and making them deformed. Since Palm Tree Panic resembles Green Hill Zone, this should be effective to Sonic. He sees in person what could have happened to Green Hill Zone if he never stood up to Eggman. A lot of people overlook how much of a credible villain Eggman is. Sure, he's not the most threatening looking bad guy, but he's still apathetic of what could happen to the world. He wants to build his empire and doesn't think twice about the consequences everyone could face. Eggman is a threat that Sonic needs to stop, not because it's like his job or something, as the recent games make it seem.
I can't believe this! I was supposed to beat you this time!
I'm sorry. I didn't get that memo. I beat you every time. No, seriously. We beat this guy every time. It's like it's our job or something.
It's because he cares about the world. That's what makes the two such interesting opposing forces. In order to change the future, Sonic travels to the past to undo Eggman's heinous plans. Speaking of which, while you're charging up speed for time travel, you can go through enemies without curling into a ball. It's in these brief moments you feel like a force of nature. Palm Tree Panic in the past has a more prehistoric look with greener skies, a more purple rocky landscape, and an overall ancient and murkier design. The children aren't heard in the past theme since they haven't been born yet. In the past, you'll find holograms of a metal doppelganger that looks like Sonic, bullying helpless animals. Possibly a means by Eggman to taunt you. Knowing Sonic, he won't stand for that, and crushes the hologram projector. After searching throughout the zone, you'll find one of the hidden robot generators that Eggman placed all over Little Planet via the Time Stones. This game heavily focuses on a certain factor that's been widely overlooked: exploration. You'll be searching throughout the stages for the generators and hologram projectors, encouraging you to familiarize yourself with the areas. The camera is set further from Sonic and CD compared to 1 and 2 in order to see more around you. The adventure games will dwell on exploration further, most notably in the underrated treasure hunting stages. Speaking of which, there is only one bottomless pit in the entire game. CD doesn't punish you for not reaching the peak of the stage like in Sonic 2. Rather, it influences you to search high and low. Following the balance of speed, slower pacing gameplay is used for exploration, while faster paced gameplay is used for time travel and finishing the stage ASAP. After smashing the generator, let's see how the future turns out. Not only has Palm Tree Panic been saved, it's become even more beautiful and prosperous. It's brighter, all the woodland critters are free and frolicking, there are no badniks, and while the trees are mechanical, they're connected to pipes containing water, may be transferred to a current civilization as a clean energy source. Destroying the generator has kept the meadow safe and secure for good. Now let's head back to the present. The badniks in CD retain that balance of color and menace, once again acting as successors to previous badniks, in some cases like Po B and Buzz Bomber, Chem C and Caterkiller, and Big Bomb and, well, Bomb. CD is the first installment where the badniks don't have English names, but they are puns once again. Kamemusi translates to stink bug, Batapion means grasshopper hopping, and Sasori is scorpion. Wait, Sasori? Like that Sasori? Holy shit! A badnik has the same name as one of the Akatsuki. That is so freaking metal! Anyway, after destroying a badnik, a seed flies out and instantly grows into a bloomed flower. Instead of animal life empowering the robots, it's plant life. Even the capsules at the end of Zone 3 contain flowers. I always thought this gave CD more of an artistic image, and it works with that. At the end of Zone 1 in the present, you'll encounter something Sonic hadn't prepared for: a fangirl. After saving the world a couple of times, he's bound to get a fan or two. Meet Amy Rose, an energetic and hyper young hedgehog who has an undeniable crush on the hero, and ran all the way up to Little Planet to meet him. In the Japanese manual, it states that Amy was persuaded to go to Little Planet by tarot cards, since she's fascinated by fortune telling and all things mystical. Upon first seeing Sonic, she uncontrollably latches onto her hero as cartoonish hearts float over her, and Sonic just doesn't care. It's kinda funny. After destroying an endless series of robots, wandering through ancient ruins of civilizations lost in time, turning Super Saiyan, and escaping a Death Star in outer space, we wouldn't expect something cute like this. While Amy is hugging you, the only way to get out is by jumping. You can move all you want, but it won't help. That girl has muscle. Amy makes history as the first female character in the franchise. Following this game, she'll grow and develop more as a recurring character. But here, she starts off small and humble. Oh, and on a side note, it's humorous looking back on how the English manual called her Princess Sally from the then current animated series Sonic Sat AM to entice kids into watching that show. They thought kids wouldn't notice the difference. The Japanese manual also included her beta name, Rosie the Rascal. Yeah, I'm glad Amy Rose stuck. Throughout the adventure, you travel to the past of the two zones in every stage to destroy both the robot generators and the hologram projectors to ensure a good future. What's fascinating is that it's optional. If you want to, you can just finish each stage without time travel. Whether or not Sonic goes the extra mile is up to you. With that, what makes him a hero is you, the player. This makes the journey more personal than in any other installment. Zone 3 of each stage is always set in the future. At the end of Palm Tree Panic, you encounter Eggman himself in a skinny Metal Gear-esque mech. According to Sonic Wiki, the mech is officially called HVC-001, the model number of Nintendo's Famicom. A pretty subtle attack at Nintendo. Depending on the future you're in, it can have a different color palette. The boss battles in this game show he's prepared for Sonic. HVC has both arms equipped with bumpers, and both feet have spikes. You gotta wait for an opening when he takes a step back, or you can wait from behind and demolish him in less than 30 seconds. I gotta bring up the music. In the Japanese soundtrack, the boss theme is a catchy rap song that starts with an evil laugh and has lyrics that say, "Work that sucker to death! Come on now, work that sucker to death!" In the North American soundtrack, it also starts with an evil laugh and gets all the more eerie as it goes on. In fact, it's pretty terrifying. The distorted music, the children crying, it's Eggman's most sinister theme to date. If the Japanese song expresses how much fun Eggman has in being the villain, then the North American song reminds us he's planning to bring the world to devastation. They're distinct tracks that work in different ways. After Sonic tears the mech apart, Eggman flies off, as our hero leaves the secure palm tree panic behind to save the rest of Little Planet.